Everybody, and welcome to your 5-8 clinical reconciliation training. My name's Angel Burgos. I'll be your instructor for the morning. Today we're going to cover everything that has to do with the clinical reconciliation utility. Most of you are familiar with the medical reconciliation pop-up or medication reconciliation pop-up that is derived from the template. It gives you the ability to compare and contrast medications from internal and external values. Well, with the release of 5.8, we've come out with a new utility. Partly because of meaningful use requirements and things like that, but we'll talk about that as we get into the application. First off, let's take a look at what our objectives for today are. The thing that we're going to cover here is why clinical reconciliation. That's also going to branch into when should users perform clinical reconciliation. We'll look at some of the setup that's required to utilize the clinical reconciliation utility, as far as what's required for user rights in system admin, as well as where to even utilize the reconciliation utility. From there, we'll go into the reconciliation overview, which will allow us to touch every facet of the actual application. We will do examples, we'll touch and see every piece of the actual tool. So you should have no confusion leaving this class exactly what this tool is for and how it's utilized. And then move on to why clinical reconciliation. Meaningful use to requirement, core measure 14 of 17. And it basically states that users must be able to reconcile medications, medication allergies, and problems. Locally and simultaneously display data from two or more lists in a single view. Single list of reconciled information. View, validate, and confirm the final reconciled data. So essentially what you're going to see when we get into the actual application is all of these values. And I'll pinpoint them and show you exactly and tell you exactly where they are and how we're meeting that meaningful use requirement. Look down there at the bottom, each data type must be viewed, reconciled, and confirmed separately. All that saying is that there's multiple tabs and you actually have to go through each and every tab. You can't fill out the information on each tab and then just click one confirm button. You actually have to view, reconcile, and confirm each one individually, and you'll see that as we go on. When perform clinical reconciliation, this must be performed in two separate situations. The eligible professional who receives a patient from another setting of care or provider of care or believes an encounter is relevant should perform medication reconciliation. So this is breaking down the medication reconciliation, and you'll see two definitions to try to break down when it should be. Now, it depends on whether you're trying to meet meaningful use 1 and meaningful use 2, and we'll kind of explain that here in the next slide. But I want to pinpoint the relevant encounter is basically anytime the eligible professional deems it necessary. So it really doesn't matter. It's up to the provider. You may see some providers that are doing reconciliation every visit, and that's fine if they choose to. The only ones that are going to count towards the meaningful use requirement are those that have to do with the transition of care. All right, and we'll take a look at that. The transition of care is essentially any time that the patient's being moved from one medical setting to another, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, physician office, home health, rehab, long-term, it really doesn't matter. It's just basically the transition of care from one practice to another. It could be just a provider to a provider. So just understand those two pieces of it. For stage 1, the only thing that affected the denominator was the transition into care increments. So nothing really met the requirements except for when there was some type of transition to care. In stage 2, I guess a transition into care does not increment the denominator. There's only 3 increments denominator, and those 3 are listed here. You have a new patient encounter, summary care electronically received, or area of care hard copy. Essentially, is saying is that the only time that you're going to actually affect the denominator is when you have a new patient encounter that comes through, when you receive an electronic CD continuity of care document that comes through, and we'll be able to take a look at that. Or summary of care is a hard copy, which could essentially be any time that a patient brings a chart abstraction of some sort to your office. lastly, down at the bottom, a little note. There are checkboxes being added in the medication review pop-up, so users can select the appropriate checkbox. So as of right now, as I mentioned with all of my 5.8 classes, this is beta. So what you're seeing is completely beta. It could change just slightly by the time you actually see it for LGR, or it could change completely by the time you see it for LGR. We really wanted to go forward with this training anyways, so you get it sooner versus later. But just understand, some things are going to change by the time the final release comes out. So here, and the checkboxes, just understand as we're going through, in order for the clients to receive credit for this, is basically going to be determined on those particular section of checkboxes exactly mentioned up above there. All right. Clinical affiliation setup, we're going to pop in and out here a little bit. So we're going to go and take a look at system admin. Come back and we'll take a look at the rest of the PowerPoint until we get to the overview piece. And then at that point, we'll just stay in the application. Let me see if I can get this out of the way so we can see our system administrator application. All right, you should be able to see system admin here. Rights and permissions are always given at the group level, so I'm just going to navigate down to my administrators group. Once you select that, you'll see the rights tab here. I select that rights tab. I'll go under my modules here. My modules, what we're interested in is this option right here, discrete data import. All the options may not be necessary for what we're doing. These are the options that you'll have the ability to utilize for the CCD input and being able to view, add, update, delete, and print that particular information. So these are the values that we're utilizing to the clinical reconciliation utility. So keep that in mind when setting up. Your users will need to have access to the discrete data import in order to utilize the utility. Budget from a system admin perspective is just that one link. Important piece is this slide here. You need, in order to utilize the clinical reconciliation utility, you have to have NextGen 5.8. If you're using 5.7, you're going to still be capturing the data through the medication reconciliation pop-up. You then have your EHR Connect to import CCDs with external. So you have to have EHR Connect in order to get those CCDs imported into your system. SureScripts to compare medications with external data. What does it mean? It means you must be fully capable of utilizing the e-prescribing as well as being able to pull the medication history. So medication history is when you're going to see external data come through via SureScripts. So it means that the provider needs to be enrolled in mail order, mail pharmacies, retail pharmacies. It's got to be fully set up and fully capable of utilizing ERX in order to be able to utilize the SureScripts piece of the clinical reconciliation. Now, these two work independently. So you have CCDs that are imported into your system via the EHR Connect, but they'll actually have medications on those CCDs, so you'll still be able to compare and contrast information against the EHR. If you have both of them, if you actually have the SureScripts as well, you'll be able to see two different types of documents. You'll see your CCDs as well as your so if you don't have EHR Connect hooked up to your particular system, you have SureScripts and ERX completely set up and compatible, well, they'll be able to do the medication reconciliation piece, but remember the MU2 requirement stated that you have to be able to meet medical reconciliation, medical allergy reconciliation, and your problems reconciliation. So keep that in mind with dealing with this particular for the clinical reconciliation utility. there's a question. It's just basically asking, can you please explain EHR Connect to us? EHR Connect is a utility that basically connects you out to a RIO. If you have any interaction with the medical summary utility, you understand that that's the tool that we utilize to pull in and import and export CCDs. Well, you can only utilize or import or export a CCD is if you were connected to an external RIO of some regional health organization of some sort, where you could actually pull that data in from other external sources. We do have another class that's strictly just EHR Connect. Please try to attend that class. I believe we give it monthly. Just go on to eLearning and sign up for that class. Like I said, I believe we teach it once a month, if not once every other month. EHR Connect is basically the gateway to a regional health organization where multiple practices and enterprises are actually connected in, sharing clinical data for a particular patient. You can pull that clinical data down and import your CCD into the application, therefore allowing you to compare and contrast the information against what's already currently in your system. So that brings us to our affiliation overview. So at this point, I'm going to share our application. We'll get into it and get to see exactly what we have to offer here. Be able to see my application starting here momentarily. All right, the application right now. My EHR. When navigating out to the clinical reconciliation utility, there's actually 3 different ways that you could do this. The first way is through your view menu. So up in the top left-hand corner of your menu toolbar, you'll see the view option. Under the view option, you'll see the clinical reconciliation. You select that value, it's going to open the clinical reconciliation utility in the view all mode. What that means is that you'll have the capability of navigating through each and every tab. Now, we call this an application or a tool or utility. You may even hear people call it a module. And it sort of is. The only thing is that it's not a piece of or part of our tic-tac-toe in the bottom right-hand corner. So it doesn't quite equate to a module, but understand that you may hear it called that as well. I do have an encounter here. I'm just going to simply open up the medication module. The second way that you could open up the clinical reconciliation utility is through the actual module itself. So in each of the modules that we'll be able to reconcile the information, you'll see an actual reconcile button. And what that's going to do is it's going to launch the actual application, but it's going to launch it and open it in what we call module-only mode, which means that it's only going to allow you to get the data for that particular tab. So here you see that we're on the medications. You'll be able to see that, this is the medications tab. This is the data. I can't actually select any of the other tabs because it's in module-only mode. In view-only mode, you'll be able to click on each and every one of them and just navigate through each piece. All right. The last way of launching the clinical reconciliation utility is through a template. You could add a button to a template and actually be able to launch the clinical reconciliation module that way, or application that way. At the end of the class, I'll come back and I'll show you what the actual trigger work looks like. And one thing to know about launching the clinical reconciliation utility from the template is that it's going to open in view all mode. So you'll be able to see everything, navigate across the entire list up at the top. and get into the application. Here we go. Open this up. So the clinical reconciliation utility, off to the left-hand side, you're going to see your documents. These are your CCD documents that have been imported into the database. In your setup with SureScripts, you'll also see another orange bar below the CCDs that says SureScripts. That means that if you have the medication history, you ran the medication history for that particular patient, you'll see the information showing up below. You could then select that particular information and then contrast the information against your EHR application. All right, so on the left-hand side there, that's the first piece. You're going to see the imported data is all going to show up here along the left-hand side. Then up at the top, we have 3 tabs. You have your View tab, your Import tab, and your Reconciliation History. View tab is going to allow you to see the CCD in XML format and XML format only. So if you do have CCDs over here, and you'll be able to see all of that information. What's really nice about this is because it's in XML format, I can easily come in and I can say, you know what, I want to see my medications. I click on it, it'll automatically navigate me down to that particular component. Or I can go in and I could utilize a filter. So up at the top, there's a filter button. If I click on that filter button, I'll get this dialog window here. I can toggle on, toggle off, and just determine what it is that I want to see. So if I only wanted to see the medication allergies, medication, procedures, what else do we have, problems, that'd be good enough. All I have to do is then select apply. You notice that there's a little note at the top that tells us that you're now viewing a filter view of the document. You'll see the table of contents is streamlined to just the values that you've selected. Again, then you can go in and determine what the information is that's actually coming in. Now, and really nothing else you could do to this but read and review the information. The business aspect of it is this Import tab. Under the Import tab is where we're going to spend the majority of our time, so I'll come back to that. Right, I'm just going to hop over to your reconciliation history. Your reconciliation history is going to capture all of the changes that take place within the with the import option. So it's going to capture those actions that you're performing within the Import tab. So under that, the actions that you'll see is the ignore, add, and place. So if any of those are performed within the Import tab, it'll actually capture the data here in your reconciliation history. It's sort of like an audit trail for the reconciliation utility itself. The business, as I mentioned, the Import tab is where the business aspect of it happens. As you see here, I'm in view all mode because I see each and every tab. I have the capability of clicking on the tab and navigating through and actually performing my reconciliation for each one of those values from that particular option. Up here, you'll see the provider information. You'll also see the patient information. Off to the right-hand side, you'll see the ability for us to review information. So this is basically saying, you know, who is it that you reviewed this information with? Was it that particular patient? Was it, you know, maybe they don't speak English or they're too incapacitated, so they had somebody else talking for them, that sort of thing. So you have the ability to capture who it is that you're reviewing the information. Not actually required, but just is a good option. In the middle, you'll see 2 options here. You'll see 2 lists. As the MU2 requirement stated, that you must be able to compare 2 or more electronic lists on a single page. There's our 2 lists. You see on the left-hand side is EHR values. These are all the values that are currently in that patient's chart. So as I navigate through these values, if I don't confirm anything, this list is going to stay exactly the same. The right-hand side is your import piece. This is where all of the data that's being pulled from your CCD is showing. So you have the capability of comparing and contrasting the information from the values that are being imported through the CCD utilizing the EHR Connect utility against the data that's currently in your EHR. From down at the bottom, again, Meaningful Use 2 requirement stated that you must be able to confirm, approve, and review the information into a single list. This reconciliation summary is that single list. If I were to change something here, it's that the list down here changes. It's going to be a window into what your EHR will look like if you perform or confirm this particular data. So and just keep that in mind. This is your single reconciled list. This is basically what the EHR will look like after you confirm this information. You noticed when I came in here, I'm just going to go back to ignore, sorry. As I'm in here, it took a little bit for the information to pull up. So I'm going to, wait a second here, you'll notice it pulls in, and each CD will pull in its own data. You may have some values that, multiple values match up, or some that don't. What's happening is, as this is actually opening up, there's some algorithms that are being performed behind the scenes to basically determine whether or not the imported data on the right-hand side is matched or already in the current EHR. If it does come back with a match, what you'll see here is under the match column, a little chain link option. So you see that chain link option on both. It'll also change the action from add to ignore. If you have not confirmed that data as of yet, if you have not messed with it or not touched it at all, it'll automatically default to add. So if that data does not compare to what's in the EHR, the system will automatically default it to add. You do have the capability of changing that performing action. Maybe you don't want to actually add that. As you're reviewing it with the patient says, nope, I'm not taking that, I'm not taking that, I'm not taking it. Well, at that point, you could choose to ignore it. If it's an ignored item, it will actually hit the reconciliation history. If you decide to choose on the none option, that's not going to do anything. It's just going to leave it. It's going to be there so you could come back. Maybe you didn't have enough information about this medication, or maybe the patient couldn't tell you whether or not that's something that they're taking. You don't know the medication name of it, and they really couldn't confirm or deny it, but you want to leave it there so you could come back and adjust it later. That's a none option will do for us. Ignore, again, is you don't want it to come in and replace, allows us to actually replace a value that's in the EHR with a value that's being imported. We'll actually try to perform a replace here with maybe an allergy or something along those lines a little bit later. With the matching option, you also have the capability of unmatching. For some reason, if this came in and you didn't believe that it was the same medication or value, you can come down below and you'll see two options down here. You'll see a match button and an unmatch button. The unmatch button will actually break those links. Then you'll have the opportunity to add, add, ignore, none, or replace. So if you wanted to, you could replace this value with the current value that's in there. What it'll actually do is it'll take it as is. They're changing the data, it's just taking it exactly how it is. So the start date, stop date, whatever the case may be, is going to take that particular information and replace what's in the EHR. It's actually going to delete what's in the EHR. We could come back in and we could actually match up a value. So if you select the item on your left-hand side for your import, I can simply click on match. All right, see that that's available to us. Once you see that, you'll see a dialog window show up. It's going to see external data. All you have to do is come in and select the values that are in, or the value that matches up in EHR. You select that, you'll see both the matching data or the data that will be matched up at the top. From there, if you're happy or satisfied with it, you just hit OK. It'll then bring back the little chain link option there indicating that it is now matched again. Once you're satisfied with the action on the import side, you have the same ability, or you have the ability to utilize some actions on the EHR side. So as a default, it's going to automatically say, you know what, I'll keep the data that's my EHR. So it's come through with a default of kept. But as you're reviewing this particular list of medications with the patient, you know what, I'm no longer taking naproxen. So instead of us having to stop here, close the application, open the medication module, get into the medication module, and then stop the actual medication, I need to stop it directly from the clinical reconciliation utility. So come in, click on stop, it'll get a stop date, it'll automatically stop it in the actual medication module. I won't have to do anything with it. It'll be it will transfer directly over to the medication module for us. You also may have noticed is that we have the ability to delete. Yes, we do, but we also have the ability to delete within the EHR application itself. The medication application itself. So it's not a new entity to be able to delete, but it is one that you should tread softly around. The reason being is that if you do delete it, it's going to be removed from the patient's chart. You will be captured in the audit utility, but still, you want to make sure that you are conscious when utilizing the delete option. The only time the delete option should be utilized, in all honesty, is if it's been a slip of the finger. You added the information haphazardly, you made a mistake, it wasn't the right patient's chart. Any number of reasons should or could lead to you deleting a medication. The ways that you shouldn't delete a medication is if it was a patient was on that medication at some point, but they're no longer taking it, then you shouldn't be deleting. Or the patient ingested a medication and it was by accident, that you shouldn't delete. That should only be stopped and given a stop date. So just kind of keep that in mind with utilizing the delete. You'll see the delete option available for you across the list there, and just understand that's why that is there for you. Satisfied with everything that's going to show up in the reconciliation summary, down below you'll see the confirm button. The confirm button will pull in and basically put these values into your particular option. So whatever it is that you're on, so if I'm on my medications, I can go ahead, I can confirm that information. If I didn't want to do anything, again, I don't have to. I could just navigate out, go to a different utility, make changes if I wanted to. It's whatever the case may be for whatever CCD it is that I'm utilizing. That's pretty much it for your medication reconciliation piece. Let's go on to the medication allergy. For those that don't know, this is the allergy option. Oh, one more thing about the medications. If you do decide to add a medication, so you say, you know what, I want to add this particular med, well, when you do that, it's going to the DUR check. So you'll see here, if you go in, you click on add, you'll see the changes that are being made. You're able to come in and confirm. It'll run the DUR check before it actually adds that value to the actual application. Medication allergies, pretty much the same. There's no who you reviewed it with up at the top. You'll also notice that the drug interaction check is not supported for medication allergies at this time. The drug allergy interaction can manually be checked from the EHR allergy module after all reconciliation tasks are completed. So what it's basically saying is that once you go down and you confirm your particular information, once you confirm it, you're able to go in and run the drug utilization review from the actual module itself. The system here within the clinical reconciliation is not going to do it for us. All right, so here with the medication allergies, I do want to point out that if you happen to utilize an allergen or there's an allergen that's coming in that it has multiple ingredients to it, You'll actually see that broken out. And what you see is here on the left-hand side under the import tab, there's a Bactrim. On the reconciliation summary, Bactrim is broken up into two pieces. And you now see it in what they're considering the causative agent. So causative agent is what the actual value was, but the allergen is broken up into two separate values. And you'll see the same thing in the actual allergy module. So I'm just opening up that medication allergy module, and here up at the top of your list, you'll see the causative agent. You notice that down below there's no little field for the causative agent. There's been talk and discussion through development that you want to add that particular field so we can capture the causative agent if it's pulled in. I just wanted to point that if it does come in as multiple values, you're able to go in and see that information. So I do want to try something here real quick for us. I'm just going to choose something here. And see if we could demonstrate a little. So no, it didn't. It didn't do it for me. What I'm going to do is I was trying to change this allergen. Oh, I did. It did work. Sorry. A reaction. Right. So although it's matched, action here of anaphylaxis. Well, here you'll notice that it comes over as unknown. So what I do here is I'm gonna, if you notice, I can come in and I can try to replace the option. So it basically allows me to go in and say, hey, I want to take this value that's coming from the imported value and replace the value that I have. So here, the only thing that you're going to see change is, instead of saying the anaphylaxis, it's going to go to an unknown option. So once I'm satisfied with that, okay, you'll need a delete option here. I'm going to save the rest of my options. I'm going to put a none because I want to be able to use them later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this value with this value or vice versa. So the anaphylaxis is no longer going to be associated with the EHR, and you're only going to see it basically come through with an unknown reaction. From there, I'm just going to come down, I'm going to confirm. You'll see a pop-up window. State changes have saved successfully, and all related actions can be viewed in the History tab. Again, it allows me to continue on. It doesn't close the application, so I could continue on through the workflow if I needed to. The values have been reconciled, so you'll see for the 16th, there's an item that was ignored and another item that was being replaced. And in my ER, when I have my medication allergies, you'll now see that value no longer has a reaction. It's also been documented and recorded as elsewhere, and the source is where it actually came from. So that's where the CCD was from. So, and pretty cool options, pretty cool utility. Again, workflow is pretty much the same. I go into my allergies, we've seen the information, we've seen it reconciled, we've seen it confirmed. Under problems, same thing holds true. Actions are going to be the exact same. You're going to be able to none, ignore, add, replace. You can pull these values in. Your drug interaction check is not supported for the problems at this time. Remember, the three that were required for MU2 was medications, allergies, and problems. So in and pull in additional values if we needed to. So if we wanted to add a fever here, I'm going to ignore. I wanted to actually do none for these ones. And none. So we're going to add the fever to the chart. So you see here, all they have is sinus headache and arthritis. Down below is going to see what it's going to look like when you pull data in, and then all you have to do is confirm. Now, if there is a value that doesn't match up, so it's not a direct match, you'll actually have to search. You'll get a little search window, and then it'll cause you to search for what action or what event it is that you want to pull in. I'll just show you here under one of the other categories so we can take a look at it, but just understand that for some reason the input data did not match what's in our system. You'll get a little pop-up window, and you'll have to search through our system to say, yeah, this is what I actually wanted. Sometimes it's pretty intuitive, other times it's to wrap your head around. So I'll make sure that I show you that here. We'll try it with the diagnosis code. Notice the diagnosis code and the procedures are a little bit different. The way that they work is that they just pull in the import value. They don't allow you to see the EHR or the summary. The reason being is that it wasn't required for MU2 with time constraints and things along those lines. They went ahead and gave you the additional ability to still import the data, but the compare and contrast is not there. Now, if you do go ahead and you try to click on replace, it will show you what's in the patient's chart versus what you're trying to replace it with. Right? I could just say, you know, I want to replace this one with that one and go from there. I'm not actually going to do it, but just understand that that capability is there. The drug interaction check is not supported for the diagnosis at this time. Drug condition interactions can be manually checked at the EHR diagnosis module after all reconciled tasks are completed. Let's see here. I think it's on this particular CCD. Or a value that we could show on that doesn't come up. Under our procedures here. Procedures, again, is the same format as the diagnosis codes. So it gives you that capability of going in. You could add, ignore, none, and replace for the procedures module as well. Just for a particular here. Let's say that I wanted to come in and I wanted to add this particular value. I click on add. When I come down, so it's a jump finger extension flex. I don't know what that means, but you hit confirm. And it's saying here, you know what, we didn't actually find the exact terminology that you have selected in our current system. So now it's got a manual search for you. So basically saying, refine your search and run it again. So if I'm in, it's basically still saying that I can't find anything based on that. I'm not exactly sure if the wildcards work, but after development, I'm waiting for feedback. So here you see adjust. If I go to adjust, I'll be able to select a specific value, or I can just go under, and then I can come in and see, you know, what it is that I'm trying to look for. All right. Again, this is only if the value doesn't match what's currently in our system. Then you'll receive this, basically saying nothing will be imported. You could try again if you wanted to. All right, so it's a search engine. Again, it looks at the data that's trying to be imported on your database and then gives you the capability of selecting an alternative to that particular option or full value. Problems, procedures, just keep in mind, you know, what it is that you're dealing with there. Let me just look at my checklist here. That is pretty much it from the reconciliation utility. It comprised of 5 different tabs. 3 of them required for meaningful use. 2 of them are just extras giving you the capability of utilizing it. Again, along the left-hand side is where you're going to see your HIE documents as well as your surscripts. Up at the top, you have your view, which is going to show you the XML format of the CCD and your reconciliation history. Let's go back and take a look at the trigger work that I did earlier. Guys, earlier there's 3 ways of launching the clinical reconciliation utility. I think it's 13. Here's an example or an overview of the there you'll see that it is, in this particular example, we added a button to the actual template. From that button, our action is go to module. On go to module, you'll see there the clinical reconciliation utility. You click on OK. It's going to open in all mode, as I mentioned previously. All right. So we covered why clinical reconciliation. We basically told us because it was meant for meaningful use too. We talked about when should users perform clinical reconciliation and the 3 different values, whether it was a new patient encounter, whether it was a new electronic or clinically imported data, or there was some type of external data that the patient brought to you. We then talked about the setup, the requirements for the setup, one being the discrete data import for your actual end user set in system admin. And 2, we talked about that the requirements that you actually need, meaning you have to have the 5.8 version. You also have to have EHR Connect and or ERX or SureScripts completely set up. From that point, we navigated into the reconciliation overview where we got to see the actual utility in use from medications to allergies, problems were required for your MU2 to your diagnosis codes and or procedures. I said we have a couple questions, so I'm going to open it up for questions.